We have started this paragraph last time, but we'll take it up again and continue further. Just quickly run through that. In a sublimer and more daring soul, sublimer and more daring. It is, of course, a comparative clause. Sublimer than whom, more daring than whom. Obviously, it refers to the previous race, the archangel race. The second, you have got the triple flight. You have got the first race, then you have got the archangel race, and then now we are coming to the kings of thought. So these kings of thought are in a sublimer and more daring soul compared with the previous ones. To the wide summit of the triple stairs. So that is what is claimed. The two steps which are there earlier, this is a sublimer than that, you see. Now sublimer doesn't mean that the steps are very high or very steep or very vertical stuff like that, you see. Triple step, bare steps climbed up like glowing rocks of gold. Rocks of gold. Can you imagine rocks of gold? See, what a phrase you see. Bare steps, that is of course Sponti, climbed up. Well, I would still call it Sponti, climbed up. You may say that the stress on up is smaller than on climbed, but still is different. But in that case, what is called reverse Sponti. Shivaji calls it a reverse Sponti. Climbed up, climbed up, climbed up. Reverse Sponti. Up like glowing rocks of gold. See how precise the language is. It cannot be more precise than mathematics. It is more precise than mathematics. Mathematics cannot be more precise than this. Climbed up. It is not climbing towards. It is not climbing to. It is climbing up. See, climbing towards means you are already having some kind of an object up there. Climbing to, you are reaching that thing, you see, towards up, as if you are aiming at something and therefore climbing towards or climbing to, you see, like that. Here, climbing up. You don't know what is there still beyond. See, that is what makes the language so precise. There cannot be poetry more precise than this, you see. Climbed up. You see, an ordinary person would have said climbing to, etc., like that. It's not that. Climbed up like glowing rocks of gold. Again, see the precision. Glowing rocks of gold, yes, but they are not yet gold. They are like gold. They are not yet gold. They are like gold. The gold will come in supermind. But they are glowing here like gold. Shining like gold, not yet gold, you see. So every nuance is present in the language and the phrasing, you see, like that. Bare steps climbed up like glowing rocks of gold, burning their way to a pure, absolute sky. To a pure, absolute sky. Which is that absolute sky? Pure, absolute sky. Burning their way, they are climbing up. Perhaps they are even going to climb beyond our mind. They are going to climb even beyond our mind to the pure absolute sky. The pure absolute sky is only in the supermind. Pure absolute sky. Only the supermind, you see. Burning the way. So these are really sublimer, bare steps, wide summit, burning. Why? Because they are glowing like rocks and burning. Blaze. The diamond blaze is there, gold blaze is there, climbing up, you see. Yeah.
What is a triple step?
What is it?
Triple step. Triple step.
Triple, yeah, those things. First race, archangel race, and the kings of thought. Kings of thought.
Kings of thought. Kings of thought. That's the third one.
Kings of thought. That is how the whole section is about.
Can you repeat? Can you repeat?
Pardon me? Triple. First is the first race.
First race.
What is called the first? He has not named that. First race. Second is the archangel race. And the third, archangel race. And the third is the kings of thought.
Kings of thought. Okay.
Third race is kings of thought. You see? I will give you the. You see, we have got the first race. Prophets, hierophants, guardians of the eternal degrees, creators of matter, oneness into units and measures. Oneness into units and measures. That is the first race. They are breaking up into small units and measures. Oneness. Creators of matter, oneness into units and measures. The second part, second stair, or what we call the archangel race, that is bring to us messages of the unseen. This race brings to us the messages of the unseen. No truth from within. Architects, engineers, mathematicians, what we call it, theologians, who have drawn the diameter of infinity, astronomer, know too much, miss the whole. That is the second race, second step of the triple. Now we are coming to the third one, the kings of thought. Kings of thought climbing up glowing rocks of gold. That is what I got now here. Their idea is cosmicity of our mind reflected in them. Cosmicity of our mind reflected in these kings of thought. Kings of thought. To grow in consciousness, that is the purpose. Participate in the vast operation, in the scheme of things. Their self-bound word shows idea in form. The idea, the expression of the idea comes with them. There is all wisdom beyond our ken. So this is the third triple race. So these are the three categories of the spiritual mind. The lower category of the spiritual mind, basically. In fact, as I said, after crossing the reason, you are entering into the domain of spiritual mind, and the early stages of the spiritual mind are this triple stair. One, the first race as he calls it, second the archangel race, and the third he calls the kings of thought. So what we are now seeing are the kings of thought, you see. The third one, the highest of these first, august and few, the sovereign kings of thought. There are too many. There are few gods of very powerful nature who have that kind of few, august. And there are full august, majestic, beautiful. Have made of space their wide, all-seeing gaze. So the space itself is a vision they are projecting here in front of you. Space is surveying the enormous work of time. Now, kings of thought have made space, all-seeing gaze, surveying the enormous works of time. Who is surveying? Kings of thought or the all-seeing gaze? Space, their wide, all-seeing gaze, surveying the enormous work of time. Who is surveying? See, the august and few, the sovereign kings of thought, have made of space their wide, all-seeing gaze. There stands for kings. There stands for kings, you see. Wide all-seeing gaze. Surveying the enormous work of time. So surveying, are these kings surveying? Are they all-seeing gaze surveying?
Maybe the all-seeing gaze. Because it's the space, who is the gaze?
Yeah. I would tend to say that it is all-seeing gaze which is surveying, not the kings of thought. I would say it is the all-seeing gaze. The space is there and it is looking all around and surveying the whole thing, you see. What is surveying? The way the time is moving and the way the things are happening in the course of time. It is that sequence of events in time, it is that which this gaze is seeing. This gaze of whom? Of the kings of thought. A breadth of all containing consciousness. That is a supported being in a still embrace. A breadth of all containing. Breadth, because now he is talking in terms of space and time. He is talking in terms of space and time. Breadth of all containing consciousness. All containing consciousness is of infinity and eternity. Supported. Now it is this part, the work of time and this gaze, it is that which is supporting being in a still embrace. Now actually the embrace of this being, in other words, the whole idea is that the being is vast, is infinite, cannot be kind of embraced at all. But these people have made him small being that it can be embraced. That is the whole function. The infinite has to now go and break up into smaller units, into parts, into measures, so that the process of multiplication can begin down below. You see, that's the whole idea. See, supported being existence, consciousness, being existence, in a still embrace. Intercessors with the luminous unseen. So they are the intercessors coming in between. Whose? With the luminous unseen. With the luminous unseen. What is that luminous unseen? Intercessor with the luminous unseen. Luminous unseen is of course the supermind. Luminous unseen. They kept in the long passage to the world. Kept in the long passage to the world. That is the whole idea of breaking down. Kept in the long passage to the world. Kept, as I told you last time, is the Miltonic spelling of capped, C-A-P-P-E-D. The imperatives of the Creator's self. The imperatives of the Creator. What are the imperatives of this Creator's self? What are its obligations that it must do? What are the obligations of this Creator's self? That is what I am going to tell you now. See, obeyed by the unknowing earth, by conscious heaven. Their thoughts are partners in its vast control. There, of course, now stand back to the kings. Yeah.
Intercessors are the king. They kept the imperative, but who obeyed?
No, imperative. Now, these are the intercessors. Kings of thought are the intercessors.
Yeah, okay. Who obeyed?
Obey.
Yeah, who?
Unseen, luminous unseen. Obeyed the unknowing earth. Obeyed by unknowing earth. By conscious heaven. Their thoughts are partners in its vast control.
Who is
Now,
obeyed?
the imperatives of the Creator self obeyed. It is the Creator self which is obeyed by unknowing earth. So it is the Creator self obeying the unknowing earth. See, the imperatives of the Creator self obeyed. Imperatives are obeying the unknowing earth.
How the imperative can obey?
That's the whole idea. See, you had to accept limit. You had to accept conditions. You had to accept restrictions. you have to accept measures. So that is why they are obeying.
But in English, I mean, they say obey by. It means somebody.
No, imperatives obeyed the earth.
No, by unknown.
No, obeyed by unknowing earth.
So they are not the obey the imperative. It could be the I don't know, the luminous unseen maybe.
Unknowing earth is obeying the imperatives of the self.
I want to ask the question in French. Marc, obéir ici, c'est verbe obéir ou il est obéi? Quelqu'un qui est obéi, it means the earth obeyed the.
No, you see, basically.
No, I cannot see the sentence because there is by, obeyed by. It means the earth obeyed the somebody, I don't know who. No? Why he put obeyed by?
They kept, in the long passage, they kept the imperatives.
The intercessor.
They kept, what does that mean? They kept the imperatives mean? Yeah, no, they have made small units. They have captured that thing, that's the whole thing. Obeyed. Now, these imperatives are obeyed by unknowing earth.
The imperatives are obeyed.
The
are obeyed. Okay, this is my question. Okay.
Obeyed by unknowing, by conscious seven.
Okay.
Their thoughts are partners
Okay.
in its vast control. Now, what is that? It stands for its vast control, creator self. A great, all-ruling consciousness is there.
It's vast control.
Its vast for creator self.
Creator.
Then,
Difficult sentence.
Yeah.
Every word is
a great, all-ruling consciousness is there. Well, that is a great thing. All-ruling consciousness is part of them. And mind unwitting serves a higher power. Because of them, it is a channel, not the source of all. Who is a channel? Mind. Mind is a channel, not the source of all. Now, this whole operation, he is now kind of telling you, the cosmos is no accident in time. In this entire operation of breaking up and fragmentation and limitations and all these things is a kind of a vaster design in the cosmic creation of the creator's self, There is a kind of a purpose behind it. Cosmos is not a chaos. Cosmos is a huge, big, well-designed, well-oiled machinery. Cosmos is a working machinery completely. And in that cosmos, all these gods and goddesses, these powers are there, they are playing their respective roles. There are kings here, there are kings here, there are gods here, there are gods here, everywhere. And they have got a certain kind of a designed objective in front of them, you see. They have to do only that kind of a function. Basically, the whole idea is, you have to imagine that how the infinite becomes finite. That is the whole issue. And to make the infinite finite into units, into measures, you have got this entire cosmic machinery built on the basis of overmind. Overmind and finally delegating its power to lower and lower beings. Kings of thought, archangel race, first race, then reason, then rash intelligence. It is kind of delegating these powers down for a certain kind of an operation, you see. That is how the cosmic machinery is working here. So the gods are there not for nothing. They have got a specific kind of a role to play and they must play that. And unless they play that role, things cannot happen. Maybe it is a limited role, But that is a functional role, that is a necessary role also. Things cannot happen. The cosmos cannot be built without that, you see. So these gods are the participators in the cosmic functioning, you see, that you see. Each god has his own role, so we can't kind of say small god or big god. Well, he has got a certain place and he is going to perform that particular action there. The cosmos is no accident in time. You see, he says no accident in time. He does not say the cosmos is not an accident in time. It is no accident in time. Not accident in time. See, no is a very positive statement. No accident in time is more positive than not accident in time. You can't see the difference? Huh? No and not is the difference. See, cosmos is not an accident in time. It means that cosmos has kind of a functioning here. He says, now it makes a much wider, much deeper sense by saying, no accident. It cannot be an accident at all. It cannot be an accident at all, you see. So again, how precise the language is. I don't know how he translates that. No accident in time. This message.
We don't have no and not.
Niya. That will not help. Nepa. Nepa will not do. Nepa will not do. It's a very Nepa will not do.
What do you
Cosmos is not an accident in time, it means.
Yeah.
But that is not what it says.
No, but in French we don't have no and not.
No, you see, that's the beauty of but that has taken the charm. That has taken the charm of no accident in time.
This subtle.
No, even I put better. Instead of saying n'est pas un accident, I would say n'est pas accident.
Maybe that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you put
But simply Nepa is not enough. Simply Nepa. Simply Nepa is not enough.
Means like
No accident. But it's not the same translation in French. It's not no and not. You change the sentence.
Now this is a very difficult phrase to translate that way in the language. No accident in time. It is not an accident at all in time. There is a meaning in each play of chance he is elaborating. It is not an accident. There is a meaning in each play of chance. There is a freedom in each phase of fate. There is a freedom in each phase of fate. A wisdom knows and guides the mystery world. Because it is not a chance, there is a wisdom which is guiding, which is knowing everything, and the mystery world goes on. Mystery world for us, not for the wisdom. Mystery world for us, not for the wisdom. A truth gaze shapes its beings and events. Its or the world or the mystery world. Its beings and events. A truth gaze. Now it is the gaze which is shaping. Gaze gives you outline, vision. A truth gaze shapes its being and event. A word shall born upon creation's high. This is what we were talking last time. Shall born upon creation's high. Voice of the eternal in the temporal. Voice of the eternal in the temporal sphere. See, that is the great magic. How in the temporal spheres you can bring that voice of the eternal. It is by these people, by this delegation of power, lower and lower and lower and lower is happening, you see. Shall born upon creation. There, on the creation speak, up there, the mantra where the sound itself creates the world. Sound itself creates the world. From there, shall born upon the high. Voice of the eternal in the temple sphere. Prophet of the seeing, of the absolute, sayings of the absolute, shows the idea significant in form. Idea significance to give form to the formless. That's the whole purpose, that's the whole intention. That is the entire business of the cosmic functioning, of the cosmic working. So the idea significance. So each idea, what the significance is there, it is that which is now brought to a form. The form of peace, the form of beauty, the form of joy. The idea which is there behind it, it is that which is expressed here. And from the seed, the growth of time arise. So, now the seed has sprouted and the growth of time has begun. You have cast the form of beauty. Now, the seed is cast in form. It is that now which has to sprout and grow and show itself as beautiful thing. As if you have got the idea of a beautiful rose somewhere up there. Now that rose has to take that form here on the physical plane, on the life plane, and become a rose of form still there. And from the seed of growth of time arise. Now this is of course the work of the creator fire, creator self. You see, who sows prophet ideas, wisdom knows, time gave, word self born, for what? Because of the creator self. It is the creator self who is really working behind all these things. And from the seed, growths of time arise. So there is a kind of a logic behind the whole thing. You start with something which is vast, infinite, unbroken. You start breaking it up, and in that breaking process, you also sow the seeds of something which is beautiful in that. You see. Now all this is done by the kings of thought. They are working. They are busy with that. On peaks beyond our ken, the all wisdom sits. Now, on peaks beyond our ken. Well, that is straightforward. The all wisdom above. Now, this all wisdom is different from a wisdom knows. A wisdom knows. A truth gives. A word. They have got kind of functional limitations, these things here. Whereas all wisdom doesn't have that, you see. On peaks beyond our ken, the all wisdom sits. A single and infallible look comes down from above. Comes down from where? From all wisdom, supermind. It is from there it comes down. A single and infallible look comes down. A silent touch from the supernal's air awakes to ignorant knowledge in its acts. Awakes to ignorant knowledge in its acts. Knowledge, it is that all wisdom which is giving rise to ignorance for a purpose. Knowledge in its acts. Awakes to ignorant knowledge in its acts. Ignorant knowledge in its acts. Now, they are all wisdom, but then you have to bring that here down. The first action is of creating ignorance, so that it becomes knowledge. See, that's the whole idea. Life comes down into material world and kind of awakes death, so that life gets promoted by the help of death. Life progresses because of the help in that particular aspect. Same thing here. Ignorance, knowledge is awakened by the all wisdom, so that it starts becoming more and more knowledge. Grows in knowledge. Awakes to ignorant knowledge in its acts. The secret power, the inconscient depths. Again, you see, he's talking of the inconscient. Ignorance, death, all the secret power in the inconscient depth, compelling the blinded Godhead to emerge. The Godhead has been blinded by inconscience, and that Godhead has to come out. that goddess to come out. So there is a kind of a purpose behind the whole thing. Determining necessities rolled down as she passes through the circuit to the earth. She, all wisdom. She is all wisdom. She passes through the circuit of the hours. It can be, of course, necessity also. Ananki, necessity. And vanishes from the chase of finite eyes, down circling vistas of ionic time. The unseizable forces of the cosmic whirlpool of cosmic, bear in their beckoned limb the fixity, of an original foresight, that is fate. What a wonderful line this is. Original foresight, that is fate. Original means there is a kind of all wisdom. So that original foresight, who? All that all wisdom. Of that all wisdom. That is fate. So original foresight is the actual fate. Now, in fact, that reminds us of something connected with other place. Well, this line often, original, that is I am, original, foresight, I am, that is fate, that is anapest. Original foresight, that is fate. Now, what is the original foresight? Well, the original foresight is Satyavan must die. That is fate. That is fate. You must die. Both fellow people. There is a purpose behind that original foresight, and that original foresight is something which is coming as a boon from the Divine Mother. Fate shall be changed by an unchanging will. Fate shall be changed by an unchanging will. That fate of an unchanging, I will give you the lines. Fate shall be changed by an unchanging. 91.9. 91.9. So she knows the ways of fate, the Divine Mother, the all wisdom. She knows 91.9. Satyavan must die. That is the last line in the first canto, 42. Point something. This was the day when Satyavan must die, 42.3. 43. 143. Now, so that is the original foresight. Now, Savitri has chosen for her husband Satyavan as her husband. In the Shelvapur they have met and they are pledged to be together. She goes back to the palace to report to her father, and she said, "This is done. No question of my changing, whatever be the consequences, I am not going to change my decision at all." And then there is of course a long big argument between Narad and the queen. She is arguing, what this fate, what this Narad, you are God, creating this kind of a miserable world and like that. By the way, that character of queen in the book of Fate, she is questioning, the dialogue is going on between them, she is questioning what kind of world is it? The riddle of this world is the problem she is posing to Narad. How this world has become a riddle. Why it is so ignorant? God is all beneficial, beautiful, etc., etc. Why there is kind of ugliness? God is immortal. Why there is a death here? So that's the kind of riddle of this world for her. And she is asking that kind of a question to him. And Narad, as if he has come specifically all the way from heaven to explain to man, well, these are the reasons for this. He has a big brief and he is now unrolling the entire brief to her, you see. Now, what I was trying to say was that this is a question which is asked by Queen. It is not asked by Ashwapati. It is your God who has made this world, this miserable world. This is a question which is posed by, the riddle of the world is posed by man. It is basically a question of human mind. Now, Ashwapati has climbed up the entire staircase of knowledge, etc., etc. He cannot go and ask Narad, it is you. It is your world. See, he cannot go and ask him like that, you see. So, Shrivendu has introduced this character specifically for this purpose in Savitri. To raise this issue, he cannot put in the mouth of Ashwapati. He cannot put it in the mouth of Ashwapati at all, you see. So, he has introduced the character of Queen. He has not given the name to her. The name is given to her in the original story of Mahabharata. She is named as Malati. Savitri's mother is Malati. And it is Malati in Shrivendu's Savitri who is raising that question. Whereas in the original story of Savitri, in the Mahabharata, there is absolutely no place for Savitri's mother or for Satyavan's mother to speak anywhere anything. You see, that was a patriarchal society. So all these affairs, all the dialogues, all the discussions were held between men and men. Women did not really participate in the dialogues and discussions in those days at all. So they never questioned anything at all in the original story of Savitri, Mahabharata Savitri. But Shrivendu, a modern epic, in that sense, he has given full weight to the human mind through her, and it is she who is raising that question. Now, this character of Queen was introduced by Shrivendu very late in the composition of Savitri. It is not presented at all in any of his earlier drafts. It started appearing, it appeared for the first time in 1947 when he was doing the Book of Fate around 1947. It is at that time he introduced this character of Queen in the epic. So the character has appeared much later in the entire. See, in 1947, Ashwapati has really climbed up the topmost ladder of creation completely. He cannot come down to this level and ask these questions to us. You see. So that date 47 in essence is very significant. Very significant from that angle, you see. So at that time he kind of created this new character in the narrative of Savitri, you see. So original foresight is fate of what is decided there. Now when Savitri is, after choosing Satyavan and after Narad declaring that Satyavan is going to die 1 year after the marriage, Savitri is going back to Salva Woods. She is going to join Satyavan, and the very first line of book 7, Canto 1, very first line. Fate followed her foreseen immutable road. 114.1. Fate followed her foreseen immutable road. Fate followed her foreseen immutable road. 114.1. Now, it is fate in the original foresight. It is fate in the original foresight. then it is going to follow the immutable road. Savitri has to go through that. Savitri has to pass through that. Fate followed. Now, of course, fate followed her foreseen immutable road. Immutable road one can understand because the original part of it. Now, foreseen by whom? Foreseen in the immediate context of the narrative, of course, it is by Narad. In the immediate context, it is Narad. Foreseen by Narad, because he is telling all that thing. But if you now go back to this original foresight, that is fate, then it is this original foresight which is fate, which is foreseeing the immutable road. So in the case of a story, the narrative, it is of course attributed to Narad. But now if you take this original foresight, that is fate, then it is this original foresight which is foreseeing the immutable road. So the fate itself is seeing the road is completely easily there. Now, again, fate followed her. Her, is it the antecedent of her? In the immediate context here is the antecedent of her is fate. Fate is feminine. The antecedent would be fate here. But here it would also mean Savitri. Fate followed Savitri's immutable unseen road. So, see, that is the magic of poetry in Savitri, you see. Basically, it is that original foresight is such a powerful phrase. What is fate after all? It is already decided up there. But in the case of common people, in the case of ordinary man, it is the governance of various forces, individual, cosmic, transcendental, all of them are working together and they are molding your events and sequences of time in that. Whereas in the case of destined people, marked people like Savitri, it is the original foresight which is going to govern every course of event. It is the original foresight which is going to govern every course of event. You see. So this is a very powerful line. Original foresight, that is fate, is a tremendous orchestratement. Tremendous orchestratement. Even nature's ignorance is truth's instrument. Obviously. Because otherwise how you are going to make things up? Nature, even talking. Nature talking. Ignorance, dactyl, is truth's instrument. Dactyl. So this is a line, even nature's ignorance instrument. All these 4 feet are falling feet. With an I is truth's instrument. Even nature's ignorance instrument. All are falling. What a beautiful line. So you can see the fall and the meter going together. Nature's ignorance is describing and the meter is matching with that. Even nature's ignorance is truth's instrument. Well, so that is the cosmic working. That is the fate. That is the original operation of things. Now, it also means that nature's ignorance is truth's instrument. Same way, death is life's instrument. As ignorance is truth's instrument is ignorance. Life's instrument is death. In this condition here, It is by death that life advances, progresses. By ignorance that truth grows here. Same way, life progresses because of death. So that's the mission. That is the original foresight. Even nature's ignorance is to say, what a powerful line. Our struggling ego cannot change her course. Her course. Yet it is a conscious power that moves in her, and destiny, the unrecognized child of will. See? Very rhetorical statement, it's very powerful. Even nature's ignorance, the truth instrument, our struggling ego cannot change her course. You may try, but you are helpless. The cosmic machinery is so powerful that man's effort is of no consequence there at all. That's the original foresight. See, and all this is coming from all wisdom sits infallibly by truth's directing gaze. This is third time the gaze is appearing. Infallibly by truth's directing gaze, all creatures hear their secret self disclosed. That is the whole idea. From inconscious, you are secret, you are growing, ignorance is there, becoming more and more knowledge. Death is promoting your life towards a higher possibility of expression. First to become what in themselves they hide. How elaborate and complete description you see. For he who is grows manifest in the ears. He who is here. And the slow Godhead shut within the cell climbs from the plasm to immortality. My God, you see, one can keep on writing essays on these lines, you see. Slow Godhead, that is slow evolution. Shiva Guru always says the evolution is slow. Slow evolution. Godhead shut within the cell. It is there, they locked in the material life, you see, completely locked. Godhead shut within the cell, climbs from the plasm to immortality, from chromosome and gene to immortality. Plasm from, well, of course, it also means that there is no immortality in the plasm. There is no immortality in the plasm. Genes and chromosomes, there is no immortality. It will come, which is another thing. It is shut within the cell. It is still locked in ignorance. It has not opened out to the divine. The plasm has not opened. As it stands, the material base which is there at the moment, chromosomes and genes, they have not opened out to immortality. That does not mean that they will not. Climbs from the plasm to immortality. In words, the growth of this slow Godhead from the material base at the moment to immortality would also mean the growth, climbing of plasm to immortality. Plasm itself becomes more and more luminous, more and more open to the light, more and more. The cells had to open out later on. The yoga of the cells would mean that they had to hold in them the divine presence, the divine power, the divine dynamism, the divine expression in the cell themselves. Same thing will happen in the plasm. which is a part of the cell itself, you see. But hidden, but denied to mortal grasp, mystic, ineffable is the spirit's truth. What is ineffable, what is mystic? That even in the cell, even in the plasm, there is immortality that is hidden. That is hidden. There is immortality in the plasm, in the cell, that is hidden. But he says the slow Godhead will grow eventually. Unspoken, cut only by the Spirit's eye. The Spirit's eye sees that, well, tomorrow even the cell and the plasm will be the expression to the divine. When naked of ego and mind, it hears the voice, it mortal grasp. But hidden, but denied to mortal grasp, mystic, ineffable, is the Spirit's truth. Unspoken, caught by the Spirit's eye. When naked of ego and mind, it hears the voice. It looks through light to ever greater light and sees eternity inspiring life. This greater truth is foreign to our thoughts. Well, he is hammering, he is making a very small, making us look very stupid, you see. But it is a fact, you see. This greater truth is foreign to our thought. It is foreign, but that does not mean that it should always remain foreign. It does not mean that it should remain always foreign. Where a free wisdom works, they seek for a rule. Or we only see a tripping game of charm, or a lever in chains forced by bound nature's law. That is what we are. Audacious in their sense of God-born strength. Audacious in the sense of God-born strength. They dare to grasp with their thought truth's absolute. They seek for a foreign to our thoughts, our thoughts. They dare to grasp with their thought truth's absolute. By an abstract purity of godless sight, by a percept nude, intolerant of form, by a percept nude, anapist, I am intolerant, I am critic of forms, I am. By a percept nude, intolerant of form, they brought to mind what mind could never reach, and hope to conquer truth's supernal maze, those kings of thought. A stripped imperative of conceptual phrase, architectonic and immutable, translated the unthinkable into thought. That's the whole idea. Architectonic, systematic arrangement of knowledge, that is the architectonic, systematic arrangement of knowledge. A stripped imperative of conceptual phrase. See, our abstract phrases are like that. Architecture of immutable, translated the unthinkable into thought. The whole idea is what cannot be thought at all, what is unthinkable, has to find a thought ultimately. So that is what these people are doing, architectonic systematization. Translate the unthinkable into thought. So that is a kind of a fall. That is a fall. The fall of the unthinkable to come down to thought. That is a fall. But that is a necessary fall. That is a necessary fall, you see. Translate the unthinkable into thought. a silver-winged fire of naked subtle sun, a silver-winged fire of naked subtle sun. Suddenly the poetry is different. A silver-winged fire of naked subtle suns. This is suddenly a lyrical line. You can see the reform. Architectonic and inevitable. Translated the unthinkable into thought. These are narrative metaphysical descriptions. Narrative metaphysical descriptions. Whereas a silver-winged fire of naked subtle sun is suddenly lyrical. The poetry has changed. The poetry is different here. A silver-winged fire of naked subtle sun. Now, how will I translate the thing? A silver, that is the first foot. A silver, short, long, short, long, short. Silver, that is amphibrach. A silver, winged fire. Now, winged fire could be a spondy, it could be also an am. A silver wing. You see, basically, a silver winged fire, you say. You not say silver winged fire. That won't be the good English of speaking. It will be silver wing, a silver winged fire of naked subtle sense. So, second foot I will take as a am, winged fire. Although wing is quite heavy, it has a lot of quantity in it, yet by way of stress, by way of accent, it will be short. So first foot will be amphibrach, second foot will be am. Of neck, it subtle sense. The others are am. So this line is a very difficult line that we, and see the beauty of the line, a silver winged fire of naked subtle sun. The S alliteration, the L alliteration, make it move very smoothly, beautifully. A silver winged fire of naked sun, an ear of mind withdrawn from the outwards rhyme. An ear of mind withdrawn from the outwards rhymes. Now he is using outward as a noun. Outwards now. He is using outwards as a noun. And it becomes a noun because of the definite article the. The outwards. The outwards rhymes. And here, actually this line, an ear of mind withdrawn from the outwards rhyme. So you are not going by the superficial rhyming. There is some kind of a rhythm, movement, harmony within. It is that is there. An ear of mind. Mind has an ear. An ear of mind, you see. Withdrawn from the outwards rhyme. Discovered the seed sound of the eternal word. Now the entire mysticism is in this line. Discover the seed sounds of the eternal word. Seed sounds of the eternal word. That is mantra. That is the definition of mantra. That is pure mantra. Seed sounds of the eternal word. Who is discovering this seed sounds of the eternal word? Silver winged fire of subtle sense. It is silver winged fire of subtle sense. Who is discovering? It is that fire who is discovering seed sounds of the eternal word. Word, the power of expression, Brahma. Word in the Rig Veda stands for Brahma, the creator. Not the Puranic Brahma, Shabda, the original word. Word, eternal word, that is Brahma. Eternal, he says, word. W capital again. Seed sound. Now, actually, that is the whole basis of the language like Sanskrit. The language has root sounds, and from the root sound, then the entire structure of the language develops. And the root sound is the way by which you understand what it means. Shivandu has given an example, vraka. Shivandu has given an example, vraka. Vraka is bull. In English, the bull, vraka. Now he says that vraka in Sanskrit, vrak, has a sense of tearing. The root sound, that vra sound, has this sense, meaning of tearing, ripping apart. And it is that ripping apart is what you call now an animal vraka, bull. Now that is the beauty of Sanskrit language. It comes from the root into the word, into the formulation. Whereas wolf has no basic connection with anything else at all. Wolf is wolf, this animal is wolf. This is blue, this is green, but that why that blue, why that green, that root aspect is not present in our languages at all, you see. Sanskrit has that property. In fact, the very example, Ashwa, Ashwapati, the lord of the horse, Ashwa. Ashwa means horse. Ashwa, the root sound of Ashwa in Sanskrit. Ashwa as a root sound means something which has strength and speed. Ashwa as a root word means strength and speed. Strength and speed. Now, the Ashwa root sound is that thing, and then you see an animal with speed and strength and you call him Ashwa. You call him a horse. You call him a horse. So the seed sounds are the important thing. The sound themselves express the quality, the form, the kind of a creature to be there. The sound itself has that thing. And that is the mantra. That is the power of the word. That is the power of the mantra. Discover the seed sound. Now, this mind is discovering the seed sounds of the eternal word. It's a tremendous thing. It's a tremendous thing. That you are climbing up now from above, from below up, and then discovering the seed sound, the rhythm and music heard that build the world. The rhythm that music heard that build the world. And sees and think the bodiless will to be. And when it is seeing the will to be, it is that eternal rhythm which is moving here. Now this particular line, discover the seed sounds, the eternal world, the rhythms and music heard that build the world. In the Rig Veda, Devada treats the poetic measures of the sacred mantras. Poetic measures of the sacred mantra. What are the sacred measures of the word mantra? The meters, the common meters in the Rig Veda are Anushtuba, Trishtuba, Jagati, Gayatri. They are metrical forms of movement. As symbolic of the rhythms in which the universal movement of things is cast. The universal movement of things is cast. When you say Gayatri, the way in which the sound moves, it is in that manner the rhythms of the word are cast. Anushtuba, the way in which the sound moves, the rhythms of Anushtuba are there, the way in which they are moving, it is a world by itself. So it is the meter which actually governs the movement of the world. Music that builds the world. Music that builds the world. Anushtuba, Gayatri, Trishtuba, they are the meters which are actually the rhythms of the original sound. On the basis of that original sound, the movements of the spheres, the movements of these things are happening constantly, you see. That's the whole idea. It is a very deep sentence, completely, you see. The ear of mind withdrawn from the outward rhymes, so the outward rhymes are gone. Forget about mind. Mind has become silent now. And then what is discovered? The seed sounds of the eternal word, the rhythm and music heard that build the world. And sees and think the bodiless will to be, the will has not taken any body, any form, but it is that will which has to take form, has to become a measure, has to become a unit, has to become an individual. It is that will has to become. And so, what is actually happening? Up there, all the movements of the meters are there. They are governing the movements of the movement, and they are getting now translated down below in a will to be. Actually, we can even say that these Vedic meters, they are actually the original sound movements in the transcendent. The first are the sound movements in the transcendent. Now, on the basis of those movements, on those vibrations, on those rhythms, on those resonances, are then the words built. First comes the rhythm, the sound, the laya, the melody. It is that which comes first, and then comes the kind of a manifestation into material form, and then down below. Same way I will say, Trishtuva belongs to the transcendental, Gayatri belongs to the transcendental, Anushtuva belongs to the 7 meters, Jagati belongs to the transcendent, the 7 meters of the Rigveda, these are the famous ones, they actually belong to they govern the seed sound and their movement, and it is they which get translated in the form of certain actualities here. I will even say that to a certain extent, although he is giving examples of Anushtuba and Trishtuba, even the Greek hexameter is also a rhythmic movement in the transcendent. There is a kind of hexameter, dactylic hexameter of Homer. It is up there present, and he had kind of an access to that hexameter to bring it down here and write his epics. So the presence of these transcendental meters is something what we have got here. See sounds of the eternal word. See sound, the word itself, the voice itself produces a creature, horse or wolf or whatever you want to call it, like that you see. The rhythm and music heard build the world and sees and things, the bodiless will to be. It is that now which has to grow up. What has come down from above has gone into here, this creation. It has to now come up and has to become the will to be. See. So the whole process of manifestation and again rising up to the glory is what is described in the full line. Very powerful sentences. Actually, I got here music, the language of the muses. Music is the language of the muses. There is a sutra in Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. He has got beautiful Yoga Sutra. Aphorism, like you see. Shotrakashaho samandra sayyama divyam shotram. That is the sutra. That is the aphorism. Just stated simply, without any explanation, nothing. What is it? Shotrakasho samandra sayyama divyam shotram. That is the original. Now, the meaning of this thing is samyama. You identify yourself. Samyama means identification. You be one with something. Samyama on the relation between the sense of hearing and the ether, akasha. Sayama akasha. Shotra, ear. Akash, ether. You concentrate, you focus, you identify yourself with these two, ear and ether. Ether is the upholder of Shabda. Samyama on the relation between the sense of hearing and the ether leads to the divine power of hearing. Divine power of hearing. So if you are able to identify yourself, be one with the ear and the upholder of ear, Akasha, then you have the divine power of hearing. What the gods hear, what the divine himself hear, It is that power you can acquire by identifying yourself with the ear, listening organ, and the Akash. Actually, behind the physical ear is the Manasa ear. Behind the Manasa ear, it is the Sadhyana ear. So, if you now build up those identifications with the ear itself and then go up there, then you reach the place where from the sound originates. That is Akasha. Sound originates in the ether. The quintessential sound originates in the ether. So, the rhythm and music heard that built the world. This is Shivantu's translation. Shivantu says, Samyama on the relation between the sense of hearing and the ether leads to the divine power of hearing. How do you hear? How do you see? Arjuna wanted to see the Virat Swarup of Krishna, and he said, give me Divya Drishti, give me this sight, Divya Drishti. And it was given to him Divya Drishti for a while. Later on that also was withdrawn. It didn't remain permanently. Actually, in the case of Dr. Sanyal, or the physician of Shivandu, he was here, and Shivandu had withdrawn on 5th December 1950, and his body was there in the state for 4 days, for 111 hours. And mother was saying that there is supramental light, blue supramental light around his body. And as long as that light is there, the body will remain there intact. Nothing will happen in that body. Now, this is what the mother was telling. And Dr. Sanyal said, Mother, you are saying that, but I don't see that light. I don't see that light. Mother gave him that sight. Mother gave him that sight. And he could see that golden supramental light around his body. So that is Divya Drishti he got, you see. Same way we have got Divya Shotra. You have to get Divya Chakshu, Divya Shotra. All our organs have to become Divya, divine, you see. The rhythm, the music, heard, that built the world, and sees in things the bodiless will to be, the illimitable, the measured with numbers and draw. That's the whole idea. That's the whole idea of breaking the infinite into finites, into measure, illimitable into measures and numbers. That's the whole purpose of creation, of the cosmic. As I said, this is a great machinery, the cosmic machinery, and these gods are participating in that whole operation. The illimitable into measured with numbers, and trace the last formula of limiting thing till the end. In transparent system, body, termless truth, in transparent systems, termless truth which has no terms at all, which is infinite. They have given now system, all kind of isms, all kind of what we call drishtanta, that is Sanskrit word, drishtanta, darshanas, that is the darshana. We have got 6 darshanas famous in Sanskrit, darshanas, siddhanta, hypothesis, isms, transparent system, body, termless truth, that time is made accountable to time. That is the fall of time. That is the fall of the illimitable. But that is a necessary fall. Transparent system, body, termless, and valued the incommensurable supreme. To park and hatch the ungrasped infinitive, park and hatch the ungrasped infinitive. They erected absolute walls of thought and speech and made a vacuum to hold the one. What a creation. The void is created to hold the one. The void is created to hold the one. What a majesty. To unify their task, excluding life which cannot bear the nakedness of the vast, They made a cipher of a multitude, made a cipher of multitude, cipher 0. And negation found the meaning of the all. The void found the meaning of the whole. And negation found the meaning of the all. And in nothingness, the absolute positive. So this is a real fact. The process of involution is what is being described in great detail here. The process of involution, down, 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 coming down here. To unify the task, exploding life which cannot bear the nakedness of the world, which they made a cipher. Cipher is the English spelling of the Arabic word sifra. Sifra, 0. Sifra. Sifra. You know Sifra? Cipher. Now Sifra comes from Shubhra of Sanskrit. Shubhra. Sanskrit word is Shubhra. Shubhra. Which became in Arabic translation Sifra. Sifra. And then that cipher was sent to Europe as cipher 0. See. So the original word is Shubhra. Shubhra means white. Pure white, which has no distinction at all of any kind. All the colors are present in it, but you can't distinguish any color out of it at all. To extract colors from the white is the magic of this cosmic creation. To extract colors from the white is the magic of this creation completely. So this cipher, Sifra, is also called the code. That's the code, that's the symbol by which you can go back and trace things up like this.
But what is it of a multitude?
Of a multitude, cipher of a multitude. Now it has started splitting up. Now that has become a 0, void. It has become 0 now, void. And in nothingness, the absolute positive. A single law, simplest the cosmic theme. Now this is a very beautiful word again. A single law, simplest the cosmic scheme. Simplest is a French word, la simple. La simple. Sri Aurobindo has used it freely as a verb. Simplest, la simplest as a noun, he has made it as a verb here. It is one of the rarest occasions of the use of French words in Savitri. Like that number of words are there. Flask we have seen last time. A single law, simplest, simplified. Made simple. A single law, made simple. The cosmic theme. So the word simplest is a very beautiful word. Coinage of Sri Aurobindo. The French noun simplest is converted into an English verb simplest. Compressing nature into a formula. The turtle liver made all knowledge one. A mental algebra of the spirit's ways. An abstract of the living divinity. An abstract of the living divinity. So that's the whole kind of downfall now. The involution. Here, the mind's wisdom stopped. It cannot go further down here. What that void is there, what that cipher is there, even mind cannot know. It felt complete. And nothing more was left to think or know. Nothing more was left to think or know. Because it has become a cipher. It has become a 0. It has become void. It has become nothing. But nothing more was left to think or know. In a spiritual 0, it sat thrones. Because it is helpless now, it cannot do anything, it is 0 now. And took its vast silence for the ineffable.
Is the mind?
Mind.
The wisdom, yeah.
Mind took its silence for the ineffable. Because it is helpless now, it cannot think, it cannot know, it cannot understand, it cannot grasp anything at all. It has no hold of anything at all, you see. Here the mind's wisdom stopped. Finished. down, down, down below, it has reached the cipher, it has reached the zero. It has itself vanished, so to say. It felt complete. Well, that's the kind of a paradox. It felt complete by becoming nothing. Here the mind's wisdom stopped. It felt complete, but nothing more was left to think or know. In a spiritual zero, it sat throned and took its vast silence within a people. I think we'll stop with that. We have managed to complete. For me, what a powerful section!
The vast silence because it's dumb, actually, you know.
Terrific, you see.
It's dumb. It doesn't have any.
Now the whole process is described inside great detail. Every bit of it. He is talking now of the spiritual planes of mind, the triple realm of mind, the first race, the archangel race, the kings of God. This is the whole kings of God there, and this is pure. How things are happening. So the whole work is to bring out multiplicity till it becomes nothing, till it kind of vanishes, becomes a cipher. So the whole metaphysics is there, how the mind breaks up things into nothing here. Now the entire reverse process has to start. And each fall is an occasion of an instrument. It has fallen, knowledge has fallen and become ignorance, so that ignorance now becomes an instrument of knowledge. Life has fallen and become death, so that death becomes now an instrument of life for life's progress. So the whole process is complete. It's a tremendous metaphysics involved, the whole thing. I think we'll stop with that. It can go on, you see. Sava? Yeah.
Simplest.
How many?
Simplest.
Simplest is the French word. Yes, la simplest. Yes, la simplest.
Does it exist?
La simplest, it exists. Yes, sir. I have seen in the dictionary also. La simplest.
No, simplify.
Simplest. La simplest.
No, in French, simplify.
Simplify.
To make it simple, we say
La simplest is simple. La simplest is simple.
but it's not French.
Is not French?
No,
Simplest.
sample
Simpler, huh?
means simple.
Yeah.
But this word, it's he put it simplify. The verb simplify means to make it simple.
No, but do you mean it's not a French word at all? Simplest?
No, it's not French.
Simplest, no.
Huh? Simplest is not a word, but it is described as a simplest as a word. The dictionary says simplest. I checked on the net. Yes, samplest, last sample. He says last samplest.
No, la simplicity.
You check again.
No.
I will check.
I'll check again. Last samplest.
At least you feel that it's
Last samplest.
But this, it's not sound French at all. Simple. Very simple in French.
It is a French word. It's not a French word at all. But then simplest is not an English word also.
Simple.
No, so it's not called simplest. He's using the word simplest.
You mean double S?
Double S for making it a verb. For verb. Huh.
In French?
Simplest has the point, doesn't it?
No. Simplest and
Simple. You see, simple is all right, but why simplest?
I don't know which language might be.
Well, what does he say? Simplest?
Simplifier.
Yeah, simplification.
Yeah.
In English,
Simplification.
simplify.
Simplify.
In English, simplify.
This is the German.
You please check again. Let me know.